Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well this Sunday. Just going to wait around here for a minute or so to let some people file on in and take their seats. Going to be looking at Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, OMG, NEO, VEN, Nano, and Ripple. Started working on additional course content that we're just going to add to the already existing crypto course, and quickly realized I've got another 6 hours of content to talk about. But I'm going to trim that down a little bit so I can get it out sooner. Ideally, by the end of the month, we'll add that additional update module to the crypto course. All right, so let's get into it. So to start off, we're going to go over a little bit of the psychology of what has gone on in the last 24 hours because there's been a lot of volatility, obviously, a lot of back and forth action. First, let's start it off on the daily time frame. So obviously, here's our big green candlestick. This is the candlestick that the bulls wanted yesterday because we had the bullish reversal, hammer or doji, depending on how strict you are with your definitions. Either works. It shows a long lower wick of bulls buying the dip and then a lack of follow through yesterday. And now we're getting that follow through. We just formed a higher low and seeing continuation. So this bounce is now officially underway, and we're going to be looking at a lower high to be set. The reason that we're going to be looking for a lower high to be set is number one, the amount of bear volume. And I'm looking at Bitfinex right now, Bitcoin on Bitfinex, so I can get some accurate volume. Again, I do not trust the GDAX Coinbase volume on TradingView. So we had increasing bear volume. We lost the daily higher low pattern. That's why we look for a lower high. If the bulls are going to prove themselves and tell me that we form that weekly higher low and higher high, that is still possible, something to be keeping an eye out for. But if that were going to occur, this daily chart is going to have to bounce, set a lower high, and then a higher low and a higher high to reverse the trend back in their favor and see this bull MACD cross. It's possible, but the odds do not favor it at this point. Depending on how significant this bounce is, that's going to shift the odds of what is to happen. Right now, just a rough target of where this bounce could be. 10,000 is obviously the next key psychological resistance level, but I would say that we could make our way into the $10,500 range before we see this little daily lower high being set. So that's just a rough visual target to be having. Checking the 4-hour time frame. So what happened yesterday? Things looked really bleak and bearish. They certainly did, and they shook out a lot of people, and that was likely the intention. So we had our top of the bounce at that point. We pulled back on increasing bear volume, and then we saw a break of our support level here of 8,605. And as soon as that level broke, we didn't see a whole lot further downside. It's like we had that quick little break, and then the bounce started. And if you'll recall, when we play oversold bounces, oftentimes we get the same scenario where we have a key psychological support level, we break it at the bottom with the climax, and then the bounce gets going. It was almost that scenario like they were trying to trigger some stops for the people that had their higher low as their stop, as opposed to having the bottom of the initial bounce. So we did end up holding that level, and it's been increasing bull volume on the follow through. And normally I would have absolutely expected an equilibrium pattern to form here, especially after a bearish reversal candlestick. This is a shooting star with a big upper wick of profit taking. So it looked like we were going to fit perfectly into an equilibrium pattern, but the way that it's set up and the timing in how it's set up, as you know, we've been watching Dump a Clock 4 days in a row now. We've now been calling it Dump a Clock, and it's 4 days in a row. Let's just look at the 15-minute time frame. So here's a dump. Then we had day number 2 down here. Actually, let me find my spots here just so I'm not pointing out the wrong stuff. So here we go. Day number 1 with our dump, lower volume on dump number 2, lower volume still on dump number 3 over here. And then yesterday, dump number 4 was at the same time, and it certainly got more magnified to the downside. 4 days in a row, we see the bears show up in about an hour and a half window, the same time every day. The setup that happened today, here's us entering Dump a Clock. We pulled back a little bit, and then the bulls showed up. Now, that does a couple of things. Number one, psychologically, the bulls say, okay, Dump a Clock is not happening for the 5th day in a row. I'm going to buy here. And that confirmed this bull flag. And then number 2, you have the bears saying, uh-oh, we're not pulling back like we're supposed to. The Bears got into this position. If I were looking bearish, I would have made a bearish entry knowing what time was coming up, and I would stop myself out if we were going to break 9,375 to see continuation. So we had a combination of bulls recognizing the lack of bear volume that has been a pattern, and bears recognizing it and having to cover. So we had a bit of a short squeeze. This is a little bit of a short squeeze that went on and had us break the $9,500 level. So on the 4-hour time frame, like I said, I would absolutely have expected an equilibrium and a lower high as it appeared was setting up, but the psychology of that timing and the little short squeeze that followed it had us break to a higher high, which obviously favors the bulls as opposed to an equilibrium pattern. Personally, I would have preferred the equilibrium pattern just for trading purposes because those signals are much easier to act on. But lots of bulls breathing a sigh of relief that at least we have some follow through now and the bounce is not done just yet. So the short term, we're looking at the hourly time frame, still not overbought, so we still could see continuation. We had that little bull flag and then continuation. It is a bearish reversal spinning top candlestick right now, but we could see some just brief healthy consolidation before attempting continuation again. The 15-minute RSI certainly got a bit extended, but again, a little bull flag on the 15-minute time frame is currently forming. We could still see continuation. Personally, if you are not in a trade right now and you're looking for an entry, you don't want to FOMO into this move. And that's because this 4-hour time frame has 4 green hourly candlesticks in a row, and we know that 4-hour consolidation is likely coming sooner rather than later. And I would say the most ideal consolidation would establish a 4-hour higher low holding 9,000 psychological support, and that would keep these little higher lows in place that the bulls now have in their favor. So again, it all depends on your time frame as to where we stand overall. If you're looking at the daily chart, it's a nice confirmation that we're seeing follow through on the bounce, but in terms of the bulls taking over the daily chart, that's not happening anytime soon. We are very likely, unless there's news to save the day, very likely to set a lower high here on the daily time frame, and then it will be up to a higher low and a higher high to change the momentum back to the bulls on the daily. If you're looking at the 4-hour time frame, it's in the bulls' favor now in an uptrend with a higher low and a higher high, and we will see if tonight we get that healthy 4-hour consolidation to establish a higher low, ideally above 9,000, keep those bulls in control, and let this bounce play out a little bit further. So my initial analysis, and this is definitely tricky, a lot of people getting stopped out. There's no doubt about it that this has been a tricky period here, and you'll see a lot of technical analysts saying that as well. But my initial analysis on this bounce was looking for some green days this weekend and looking to make our way up to the daily lower high in the low $10,000 range. And that yesterday's video definitely had a bearish tone to it because of the lack of confirmation. So it took it took an extra day for the bulls to get their feet and to get that follow through. So now we're going to go down the line and compare how the rest of these names are shaping up compared to Bitcoin, because as we know, Bitcoin is our overall benchmark. Litecoin on the daily time frame, so we have our bullish reversal candlestick. We did not confirm it, and now the bulls are attempting to follow through. But with Litecoin and Ethereum, we're not seeing the 4-hour higher high yet. And what that means is Bitcoin is catching up. So we saw Litecoin exceed Bitcoin's strength on the initial bounce. The gains were bigger there. In a recent video, I said we're going to be looking for Litecoin to slow down a little bit and for Bitcoin to catch up when we do get a bull break on Bitcoin. And so what we're seeing is the inability to break to a 4-hour higher high, but Bitcoin obviously seeing the strength today comparatively. So day number 1 on the bounce, Litecoin's the winner. Today on the bounce follow through, Bitcoin's the winner. So here on the 4-hour time frame for Litecoin, it's more likely an equilibrium pattern forming unless we can head to a higher high with continuation. But just the way we stand right now, we have our low of the dump, high of the bounce, higher low, and this is potentially a lower high forming with resistance at 192.85. And we got 194.47 as the top of this bounce. And we are going to be looking, if we do stay in an equilibrium pattern and Bitcoin starts to consolidate on that 4-hour time frame like we know is coming sooner rather than later, if that happens and Litecoin pulls back, we'll be looking for Litecoin's higher low to form at about the 182 area. And again, looking to stay in the equilibrium pattern, and then if we get a clear break of the equilibrium pattern, those are nice, clear signals to be acting on. Zooming in a little bit more, the hourly time frame, nice stair-stepping higher pattern, all since last night into today. Very clear support levels of higher lows. These are not must-hold levels because we could see a break of 184, this most recent higher low, but still form a clear 4-hour higher low staying in the equilibrium pattern. So ideal, the bulls would be their strongest if they could hold 184.12, but it is not necessarily for the bulls to keep that 4-hour time frame still in their favor a bit. So currently consolidating on the hourly here as well. Let's look at Ethereum and compare. So Ethereum, same deal. No confirmation yesterday, trying to get some follow through today. 4-hour time frame is forming an equilibrium pattern at this point, and it's a bit more likely to form one than Litecoin even is, just because we didn't get as close to resistance. So resistance is 735 and 749, and we will be looking for a 4-hour higher low. Bulls would love to hold 700, but we could see a dip into the mid 690s or so to form this higher low. Again, all dependent on the kind of consolidation that we see from Bitcoin into this evening and tonight. So the hourly time frame for Ethereum still stair-stepping higher, very similar as the other names. Higher lows, the last higher low was 701, and the bulls would love to be able to hold that level and keep their strength on this bounce. So that's it for the big three. Now let's compare how these altcoins look comparative to Bitcoin, our benchmark. So OMG, when I'm looking at the daily time frame, I say, okay, here's Bitcoin on the daily time frame. We lost our higher low, but we did hold some supports back from about February 11th, February 13th. I look at OMG, I say, where are our levels from those ranges? And we're holding it as well. So it's pretty much in line, OMG, with BTC on the daily chart right now. Bullish reversal candlestick, not confirmed, but trying to get that follow through today. 4-hour time frame does not have the higher high. So every individual name that does not have the 4-hour higher high tells us that the reason that Bitcoin does is because it was that individual short squeeze action. It was traders and volume piling into Bitcoin aside from other names because of the lack of dump a clock, in my opinion. So here's the potential lower high on OMG, $15, $15.39 are our two resistances, and we're looking for the bulls to form a higher low compared to 1260. Again, just visually looking at about the 350 or 1350s as a target for that. And those visualizations that I give, those are just very rough targets. And of course, a lot of things can change that. Most importantly, volume can change it. If we see increasing bear volume, we're likely to see further of a pullback, as opposed to if we see decreasing bear volume, and we're likely to see a less of a pullback that would favor the bulls. So hourly time frame, stair step higher, very clear. Again, the correlation is so very clear on all these names. Most recent higher low, 1366. Bulls would love to hold that level ideally, but it's not required to stay in the 4-hour equilibrium pattern. NEO comparatively. So NEO, I can say, is weaker than Bitcoin. Everybody else that we've looked at, Ethereum and NEO are the two weakest comparative to Bitcoin, and Litecoin is stronger on the daily chart, and OMG is pretty much right in line with Bitcoin. So again, I'm always comparing to our benchmark and looking at different names. And if I were playing bearish and bullish, I would be saying, okay, as soon as I see Bitcoin break bearish, I'm going to choose the more bearish names to take bearish, because those weaker names are likely to see a more magnified pullback. And when we see bull breaks, I'm going to say, all right, the names that are stronger than Bitcoin, we're going to look for some extra bull follow through. So I'm going to be looking to those names. So here on NEO, I can call it weaker than Bitcoin because the lows, the Bitcoin lows from February 11th are holding. They are not holding here on NEO. So NEO is a bullish reversal candlestick. Lack of confirmation, trying to follow through now, does not have the break of the 4-hour pattern right now. So we have our low, we have our high of the bounce, then our higher low and lower high. So resistance right now, 92.50 and 94.55. And again, the bulls ideally want to form a higher low in about the $86 range, and we'll be watching for equilibrium breaks on all of these patterns. Bitcoin so far the only one that does not have a 4-hour equilibrium pattern shaping up. Hourly time frame, clear stair steps higher, just like everybody else, and the ideal but not the must-hold level is 85.98. Checking in on VEN, VENUSD. So again, looking at the low from February 11th, we broke below that level. So VEN is a bit weaker than Bitcoin overall. Same pattern, except look at the 4-hour. Higher, actually, let me make sure here, but we're right there. It's a double top right now. So there is still, this is the closest break to a higher high that we've seen, aside from Bitcoin. It's right there at that level. And we'll know in about an hour or so if that's going to break or not. But we've got our low, high of the bounce, higher low, double top. If we reject, the bulls want to form a higher low in the 350s. And if we see follow through, the next resistance I'm looking at is another rejection on the 4-hour time frame of 428. And just to go back to Bitcoin real quick to pick our next target of resistance on the 4-hour time frame, it's again this previous bounce attempt where the bulls were rejected, and that was 10,112 is the next resistance to watch on Bitcoin, aside from 10,000 psychological. So that's where we stand on VEN, the hourly time frame. Again, it's the same stair step pattern on all of these names. ideal if the bulls can hold 359. Checking in on Nano BTC. Now we're going to start looking different because we cannot compare to Bitcoin in the same fashion on these charts because all these other charts were BTC USD and everything was measured in USD. So the fact that Nano is measured in BTC, we're no longer looking at apples comparing them to apples. It's a bit of an apples to oranges scenario. So here on the daily time frame, we had the breakout from the all-time low. The bulls are trying to form a higher low here at 0.001. And we rejected from a resistance, setting just another lower high at 0.00137. So that's our range right now. The bulls want a little mini higher low on the daily and then a break of 13.75 in order to see continuation, and the next resistance would be up at 15.9. If we see a bear break of the low at this point of 0.001, the next support is down at 9.363. So the bulls really want to hold this low. It's looking pretty good. The fact that we had increasing bull volume and decreasing bear volume on consolidation, the bulls are going to be looking for an attempt at continuation, and the 4-hour time frame is getting pretty tight. Ideal if the bulls can hold this level of 1187, and the range right now on the 4-hour that I'll be watching is 1187 to 129, essentially 119 to 129. And we will see the direction that we break from there is going to give us a shift in the percentage odds on which direction this daily chart is going to break. And last, we'll wrap it up with Ripple here. Ripple on the daily time frame, again, comparing to the February 11th low, we already broke that level long ago. It is weaker than Bitcoin. And I'm looking at USD so I can make that comparison again. And again, a lot of people say, why are you comparing altcoins to USD? Well, because it's a lot easier to compare the Bitcoin chart to it if you are just looking at the same underlying USD pairing. And it's also what members vote on, and that's what I take. So here, our low of the dump, inability to follow through, and then we have the bulls attempting to follow through right now, still in a 4-hour equilibrium pattern. Low, high of the bounce, higher low, and currently a lower high. So resistance is 841. If the bulls break 841, I am looking at 87 and 878. Those are two resistance levels that I'd be watching next. We have our higher low, and the bulls are trying for their higher high. So that's where we stand on Ripple, looking at the hourly, same kind of stair-step pattern, and the ideal level, but not the must-hold level for the bulls, is 788. So that is where we stand right now on all of these coins. Bitcoin still looking good, but starting to see a little bit of consolidation. Again, this is a 15-minute bull flag. This is ideal consolidation at this point. And until we see a 15-minute lower high and lower low, or an hourly lower high and lower low, these bulls are keeping full control. Again, I personally would not be making any bullish entries up at these levels, just because looking at this 4-hour time frame, you know, what's the risk to reward? What is the reward, and what is the percent odds that we're going to see Bitcoin head to 10,000 on this 4-hour time frame before consolidating a little bit? There are a couple indicators that say, hey, that's entirely possible. One of them being this increasing bull volume that is definitely notable and could keep the bulls in control a bit longer. But just generally speaking, this is a factor as well that would determine things. You know, if I just had a really good day on the original bounce 2 days ago, which ended up being the case, I might be a little bit more aggressive on this kind of move, knowing that if I give back, 15, 20% of those profits, that it's not going to be a huge deal. So if I were on a losing streak, this is certainly a trade that I would not take. But if after a big day, I can be a little bit more aggressive, that is something that I often do in terms of setting myself up. So, if I've had a couple red trades in a row, I'm not going to take a 50-50 or a 55-45 kind of setup. But if I'm on a hot streak, then I might be a little bit more prone to take that trade. So going to look now at the YouTube chat just for a bit and answer a couple questions. And not going to stay on too long because it is nap o'clock. So let's see. I trade on the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq and all of that, but it does not open until tomorrow. Closed on the weekends. When you ask me, what's a good level to buy Bitcoin, it all depends on your strategy. If you're looking for a swing trade or a day trade, the answer is completely different. So without any information, you can't just say, when can I buy? Because I don't know anything about what you are attempting to accomplish with that trade. Of course, as soon as I say that, there's 4 people asking that question. BTC next target is 10,000 psychological, absolutely. If you are in a trade and you are in a long-term position right now, there is no reason to sell unless 8,300s break, because we have our double low, 8,340 and 8,400. So if you've been riding this out and you're longer term and you got in on this bounce and wanted to bounce a little bit more significantly, at this point, those are your stop levels. Because again, this 4-hour chart could easily pull back to 9,000 and still be forming higher lows and in a bit of a bounce uptrend. Let's check Bitcoin Cash real quick. So Bitcoin Cash is easily weaker than Bitcoin. Again, the same comparison. February 11th, we broke well below that level. We do have more follow through on this specific bounce, however, so that is noteworthy. The 4-hour time frame, again, we broke bullish on Bitcoin and we have now broken more bullish on BCH, but this strength is only relative to the very short-term action because again, if you compare the daily charts, they're not comparable as to who is stronger, who is weaker. So as of right now, we are definitely seeing some strength. The hourly RSI is closer to overbought. The 4-hour RSI has plenty of space, but this is an hourly bearish reversal spinning top. We'll see if it gets confirmed with a pullback. 1130 right now is support and resistance is 1151. And again, finding the next resistance on the 4-hour time frame, we've already broken the level that would be the next resistance on all the other individual names we looked at. So the next one is 1180 as a resistance level. And again, I'm just looking at places where the bulls attempted to bounce and were rejected. Those are the resistance levels that I'm looking at. And we already broke the one back here on the bounce attempt again that Bitcoin has not broken yet. So just in the last 4 hours, BCH is more bullish, absolutely, and definitely going to be watching to see how long that correlation can keep up. I've always used Fidelity. For 8 years, I've used Fidelity, and I have had no reason to switch. And one of the sections that I'm going to be adding to the module in the crypto course is going to be comparing stocks to crypto, giving a little bit more information on how to transition from one to the other. So the thing about the double top on the daily time frame for Bitcoin, it's obviously very valid to be watching this resistance where we pulled back by less than $100. And let's see, it ended up being on Bitfinex, it was $88. We had that lower high. So many times I know it's counterproductive sometimes to think about, but if you're in an hourly higher low pattern, if you need to form a 4-hour higher low, you're likely going to lose the hourly higher low pattern to get that pullback. That's what happened to Bitcoin last night. We lost the hourly higher low pattern, but we formed a 4-hour higher low compared to the bottom of the dump. So it's the same theory and the same psychology on the daily chart. If we're going to form a weekly higher low after bouncing 3 weeks in a row, we're going to lose the daily uptrend doing so. We're going to lose the higher low pattern on the daily. So we have lost the daily higher low pattern. If we see this bounce and set a lower high and then a higher low and a higher high, that's going to tell me the odds of us seeing continuation on this weekly time frame are very, very high. So that's what I'm looking for, and that's likely to play out for the next week or two. Could certainly stay in this range for a while. But if there's one thing I've been learning, it's that cryptocurrency usually accelerates the estimated time frame of things. So I'd say in about a week, we're going to have a lot more information as to whether or not this is a possible scenario where the Bitcoin weekly chart just pulled back and established a higher low and is going to keep bouncing. Because remember what I've been saying now for a few weeks in these videos, just visually speaking, where I would expect a bounce to get to on this dump and bounce, I would be looking in the $14,000 range. So if we do get this little higher low and then see some continuation, my target's going to stick around that $14,000 area. And again, it's the daily chart giving us the lower high, higher low, higher high that will have me shift to that 14,000 target. Definitely more exchanges are going to always be adding features. That's not going to stop anytime soon. We're going to be getting better trading features. We're going to be getting more margin and more shorting opportunities. In my opinion, Coinbase and GDAX will absolutely have the ability to short at some point in the future. They certainly have their hands full in terms of things they're working with. But from now, for the next 3 years, we are only going to get better and better software and websites for trading crypto. I would love some pizza. Thanks for warming me up some. I actually just got some tacos. We're big about tacos in the TCG community. And I definitely have a thing for tacos. In point about the Mt. Gox trustees. So good question. I haven't really addressed that much. Definitely something to be aware of, but it's also one of those self-fulfilling prophecy things. So right now, it's my understanding that they have fulfilled all of the selling that they need to do. And it's also very clear that whoever was selling has no idea what they're doing. And I say that because if they were selling into strength on the way up, they would have made a lot more money for what they sold in Bitcoin than selling on the way down. And that's the case for anything trading. You always want to be selling into bull momentum, because if you're selling, in most cases, if you're selling on the way down, depending on the liquidity and the volume and all of that, but it's going to be a lot harder to escape because that's the direction that momentum is going in. So that person clearly did not know what they were doing. And if they're done selling and they don't need to satisfy any more, bills, then we don't have anything to worry about. But it's also the kind of thing where if everybody knows the address, as soon as funds leave that address, everybody's going to dump. And then if that fund dumps as well, that address, it's going to magnify the dump significantly. So we now have the situation where everybody's going to be watching this, and as soon as any coins move from this address, it's going to be, a red alert on Twitter, and everybody's going to see it, and everybody's going to dump. So there's going to be a dump preceding the dump, and it's going to get real ugly real fast if that is how things end up playing out. Again, I don't know if we're going to see coins move around from those addresses, and if they're going to continue selling anything, or if now that they've satisfied, their bills, if they're just going to distribute in a different way. Again, we don't know. It's a whole lot of speculation, but if and when those coins being sold are no longer a factor, it will be a very bullish indication, and we will likely see a lot of buying when that is no longer something that people have to be concerned about. It could have been, yeah, it absolutely could have been the intent of Mt. Gox to drive down the price if they were short. They could have made money on the way down while getting money to satisfy their bills. I don't doubt that they did that. It's possible. Love to have a conversation with the person and we could find out in 3 minutes if they have any idea what they're doing or not. GDAX is easily the most trustworthy exchange to get your money back in fiat. If you're a noob, it doesn't matter which time frame you start trying at. Maybe the hourly or the daily. It all depends on how often you want to try it throughout a day. If you're only going to try it, every couple of days, you're doing the daily. If you're going to try it every day, you're doing the hourly. Fish can belong in a taco. Grilled fish or Baja fish, absolutely. If you can't use GDAX, it's either Binance or Kraken, but again, you're going to have issues in terms of being able to bail out to USD. Last year, there was way more profit in stocks than crypto. This year, there is more profit, last year, more in crypto than stocks, and this year, it's been more stocks than in crypto for me personally. It's, again, just being agile and going where the opportunity is. And I was talking a lot in the summer about, once the cryptocurrency huge run cools off, we're going to be right in time for Canadian MJ to get some momentum. And that certainly played out where we saw moves of 600% plus from July last year to January this year. Still trying to get in touch with Doug Polk. He doesn't seem interested in wanting to talk. I made him a personal video and everything, a 9-minute video saying, hey, this is what we can talk about. These are my ideas on poker and technical analysis. And he never watched it. I've been reaching out, though, and in contact with Carter over at Coin Mastery and looking to collaborate with him on some stuff in the future. Never any problem withdrawing any funds. I have not traded on Quadriga, so I can't give any insight. I use Fidelity to trade Canadian MJ. Black Phone on Twitter definitely knows what he's talking about. I watch his analysis and I almost say this seems like it's more complicated than it has to be. Again, I don't use Elliott Wave like that, and it does seem more complicated to me, but if it works for you, absolutely do it. And he puts out a lot of free content, so that's certainly a bonus. I don't trust Bitcoin more than a year out, but that's just my general distrust for anything. I don't trust the stock market a year out. I want to always be in control of my capital. It probably has to do with my distrust of the government and distrust of the financial system as a whole. If I'm trading, I'm only ever in one, I shouldn't say only ever. I am 90% of the time in only one coin at a time so I can have complete focus on that coin and that coin only. I do trade options, but I have traded options way less now that I have more capital to be able to trade common shares thanks to crypto. And I find common shares way easier than options because there's one less factor that you don't have to worry about, which is time. And timing, you know, you can be dead right on a move on what's going to happen on a stock, but if you get the timing wrong, your options are going to be worthless. Absolutely pay your taxes. Absolutely. The last thing that you want is to have a headache 4 years down the road with compounded interest, or however they figure interest. Get it out of the way. I've never read a book on trading, but I am about to start, and about to start means sometime in the next 3 years. Oh, the name's just slipping my head right now. Let's see. My computer is balancing on it. Trading in the Zone. Trading in the Zone, it's more about psychology of trading. I do hold long-term positions. Any payments that we get for crypto courses or alert system, anything that we get in crypto payments, we're not touching. We're sitting on that until at a bare minimum 2020. Crypto Bear, if you have any issues, email info@thechartguys.com and we'll get it sorted out. There is going to be an update on the crypto course, ideally by right at the end of March. Again, I just started working on it this weekend, and it's something that always happens. Whenever I sit down with an outline, I start talking about the subjects, and it ends up being twice as long as I think it's going to be. How did I acquire knowledge in trading? Through people with more experience, through interacting constantly online, through never-ending quests of striving to gain that knowledge, whether it's watching YouTube videos or reading articles online, interacting with people. My knowledge of trading has doubled since I started the Chart Guys because of the quality of members that we get in the chat room. I don't do futures trading. Honestly, at this point, I don't want anything else to trade. And if you could tell me I could short crypto, I'd say, that's great, but I don't really want to sit in the computer anymore. I do not margin trade. I margin traded for a while, but no longer. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you all tuning in. Let's get one last look at the 15-minute time frame for Bitcoin. Still a bull flag, still possible for continuation, absolutely. And 10,000 is the next clear psychological hurdle. So I appreciate you all watching. Again, we have a wait list right now for our membership to our chat room and the live streams, and it's a 2,500 person wait list. And in all realistic, we're not getting through that anytime soon. We're letting about 3 or 4 people in every day, but that's going to take months and months to get everybody in. And again, it's with the purpose of keeping a contained, organized environment. If we wanted to make a lot of money, we'd open it up and say, everybody come in, and it would be absolute chaos. But we're letting a few people in so people can get a feel of how we do things and observe from the sidelines. And it makes for a much smoother transition in terms of keeping things organized and productive. And there's no cap on the alert system, and there's no cap on the courses. So those are available at any time. So I appreciate you all tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Don't forget to do those good things.